Every day, your mind is bombarded with distractions, doubts, and decisions that pull you in 100 directions at once. Yet, the most powerful changes don't come from luck, sudden motivation, or rare bursts of effort. They come from deliberate, consistent actions that reshape the way you think, feel, and respond to life. In this video, you'll discover 10 transformative habits designed to rewire your mindset, boost resilience, and turn challenges into opportunities. Each habit is practical, actionable, and rooted in real-world wisdom, giving you the tools to create lasting change and take control of your mental and emotional energy. Morning is where the day is decided. The way the first hour unfolds sets the tone for everything that follows. Attention, energy, choices, and the stories that mind tells itself. Small habits performed each morning are not trivial rituals. They are the scaffold of character. They shape identity through repeated action, one quiet repetition at a time. A single simple habit, done daily, produces change, not by drama but by accumulation. That steady accumulation rewires thinking, shifts emotional set points, and builds momentum that carries through hard hours. This chapter shows how to build those small winning habits and turn the ordinary morning into a reliable engine for a disciplined, resilient life. Every day, your mind is bombarded with distractions, doubts, and decisions that pull you in 100 directions at once. Yet, the most powerful changes don't come from luck, sudden motivation, or rare bursts of effort. They come from deliberate, consistent actions that reshape the way you think, feel, and respond to life. In this video, you'll discover 10 transformative habits designed to rewire your mindset, boost resilience, and turn challenges into opportunities. Each habit is practical, actionable, and rooted in real-world wisdom, giving you the tools to create lasting change and take control of your mental and emotional energy. Shrink the habit to make resistance vanish. The problem with good intentions is overreach. Willpower is finite and unreliable early in a transition. The trick is to make the habit so small that refusal feels absurd. 2 push-ups instead of 30, 1 paragraph of journaling instead of a 3-page manifesto, 1 minute of focused breathing instead of an entire yoga flow. The tiny habit wins because it bypasses the inner resistor. Once the motion is initiated, momentum often carries it further. The goal is consistency, not spectacle. Begin by narrowing the aim. Broad goals like get better or be healthier are vague. Habits require clarity. Choose a single, very small habit that points directly toward the person to become. The habit must be obvious to cue, easy enough to complete on low-energy days, and connected to a larger value. Examples: drink a glass of water upon waking, do 5 minutes breath-focused movement, write 3 lines of morning reflection, read 1 page of a useful book, or make the bed. Each of these seems insignificant in isolation. Their power lies in repetition and identity alignment. The daily water, the repeated page of reading, the small act of order, each says to the brain, "This is who I am." Anchor the habit to a reliable cue. Habits need anchors. The easiest anchors are events that happen anyway. Waking up, brushing teeth, turning off an alarm. Anchoring reduces mental friction because the brain already expects the sequence. Choose a cue tied to an existing routine and place the habit directly after it. When phone alarm ends, sit up and breathe for 2 minutes. After putting on slippers, stand and stretch. After pouring water, drink calmly while noticing how the body feels. This linking uses the brain's preference for sequences and makes the new behavior automatic faster. Design the environment to remove decision-making. Mornings are vulnerable to tiny choices that cascade: phone notifications, scrolling feeds, or piles of clutter that sap focus. Make the desired action the path of least resistance. Place a glass of water by the bed the night before. Keep a notebook and pen on the nightstand. Place workout clothes where they are visible. Charge devices in another room. The environment communicates expectations silently. Engineer it so the environment nudges toward the habit instead of away. Be precise about timing and measurement. Ambiguity erodes follow-through. Instead of meditate more, schedule 2 minutes of breath awareness at 6:30 a.m. Create a simple tracking method. Mark a calendar, tick boxes in a habit app, or use a physical journal entry. The act of marking completion reinforces identity and gives clarity about streaks. A visible streak is a small psychological prize that supports continuity. When a streak breaks, a quick reflection about the cause, late sleep, poor preparation, unexpected event, provides learning rather than judgment. Use habit stacking to expand without strain. Once a core micro-habit is solid, attach another small practice to it. After the glass of water, breathe for 1 minute. After the minute, write a single sentence of gratitude. This stacking keeps the rhythm intact and scales the morning routine logically. Growth becomes a chain of tiny, linked commitments rather than a sudden overhaul. The Stoic principle applies. Mastery grows through disciplined layering of small acts. Honor the reality of low-energy mornings. Discipline is not stoicism without tenderness. It is wise action aligned with limits. On days when exhaustion bites, preserve the signal of the habit by scaling down further. 2 breaths instead of 5, 1 sentence instead of 5. The point is to maintain the cue-response link. Absence of judgment matters more than achieving an arbitrary standard. The Stoic approach recognizes what is within control, showing up and what is not, external interruptions or bodily fatigue. Practice a morning primer for clarity. Spend 2 minutes scanning priorities for the day. Identify one key task that, if completed, will make the day a success. This single focus primer reduces scattered effort and channels the morning's energy toward meaningful work. Stoic discipline values doing the right thing well. Deciding the one priority before the day pulls the mind away from reaction and toward intention. Create rituals that engage the senses and anchor meaning. Rituals deepen the habit by connecting it to sensory memory. The sound of a kettle, the warmth of sunlight on the skin, the tactile feel of a pen scratching paper. These sensations make the practice more vivid and easier to return to. Add a short phrase or internal affirmation at the end of the action. A quiet recognition like steady with purpose or one day, one choice. This ties the habit to identity, turning behavior into a deliberate act of self-creation. Track progress with compassion and curiosity. When behaviors falter, respond as a wise observer rather than a harsh critic. Ask practical questions. What pattern led to the miss? Was sleep irregular? Was there an external stressor? Adjust the habit design and the environment, not the person. The Stoic practice of examining impressions without immediate reaction applies here. Observe, learn, make an intentional correction, then move on. Prepare the night before to seed the morning. Mornings reflect the choices made the night before. Hydration, sleep schedule, and planning. Lay out an outfit, set the water glass. Choose the book to read, and write a short reminder of the morning routine on the bedside table. This preparation reduces morning decision fatigue and increases the likelihood that the first cue triggers the desired behavior. The chain of tiny preparations creates a morning that is easier to inhabit. Use small accountability methods. Accountability needn't be dramatic. A simple message to a friend that says, "I'm doing 5 minutes of movement at 7, creates social friction to follow through. Publicly tracking progress through a group, a habit app, or a calendar leverages subtle social incentives. Commitments that are visible attract follow-through without the need for constant self-flagellation. Stoicism prized community and counsel. Use shared accountability as a modern extension of that wisdom. Celebrate small wins to reinforce identity. A moment of quiet acknowledgement after completing a morning practice, feeling the breath, feeling the chilled glass against the skin, seeing a checked box, cements the behavior. This is not indulgence. It is recognition that habits are the building blocks of a chosen life. The accumulation of these small acknowledgments rewires the mind to associate identity with action. Over time, the mind begins to expect and prefer those actions. Identity changes because behavior has changed. Remember that small is powerful. The Stoic masters understood that discipline is a practice performed moment to moment, not a show of dramatic willpower. The tiny habit that seems too small to make a difference becomes the foundation of a confident, composed life. Over months and years, those small wins compound into durable change. Better focus, steadier emotion, clearer priorities, and a strengthened sense of agency. Anticipate obstacles and design fallback plans. Mornings will not be perfect. Travel, illness, and urgent nights happen. Have a fallback habit that preserves the signal when the full routine is impossible. 2 breaths, a single line of journaling or 1 minute of movement preserves continuity. A prepared plan reduces the chance that one missed morning becomes a slipping slope. The Stoic approach anticipates difficulty and prepares the mind to meet it without surprise. Number 2. Train thoughts toward productive daily patterns. The essence is simple. Design small, repeatable wins. Anchor them to existing cues. Prepare the environment. Track consistently. And respond to setbacks with curiosity rather than condemnation. The quiet power of these modest actions accumulates. Over time, the habitual morning transforms the shape of character, rewires the nervous system toward calm competence, and makes disciplined decisions the default. Mastery begins with small, unglamorous acts performed again and again, each morning offering an invitation to become the person capable of facing the day with steady purpose. Finish each morning with a brief commitment to the day, a sentence spoken quietly, a deliberate breath, or the mental image of the key task completed binds the morning routine to action. This closing cements the morning's purpose and sends the brain into the day with a quiet, steady charge. The daily practice is not about fervent inspiration, but about measured, repeated action that aligns intention with behavior. Begin by observing thought patterns without judgment. Awareness is the first step toward mastery. Notice the recurring streams of anxiety, hesitation, and negative comparison. Record them mentally or on paper. Awareness does not require suppression or eradication of these thoughts. It requires recognition. The act of naming a thought, "I am worried about tomorrow," or "I feel incapable," diminishes its unconscious power. Observation is akin to lighting a candle in a dark room. Only once illuminated can the mind be directed toward constructive patterns. The mind is the architect of life. Every thought sets the tone for perception, decision-making, and behavior. Unchecked, the mind drifts toward distraction, self-doubt, and reactive patterns. Left unattended, it magnifies fears, replays failures, and magnifies limitations. But the mind can be trained. Like a skilled athlete, it responds to consistent, intentional practice. Thoughts are not just fleeting mental chatter. They are the soil in which habits, emotions, and actions grow. Shaping the mind toward productive daily patterns is not a matter of force. It is a matter of cultivation, repetition, and conscious guidance. Next, identify recurring, unproductive cycles. Most individuals have habitual thought loops that derail energy and focus. It could be rumination over past mistakes, catastrophic predictions, or constant self-critique. Mapping these patterns provides clarity on which thoughts demand redirection. Understanding the trigger, the sequence, and the emotional impact allows a precise approach to intervention. Writing down these loops makes them tangible, transforming abstract worry into actionable insight. Recognition alone changes the brain. It shifts cognition from autopilot to intentional engagement. Language shapes thought, and thought shapes perception. Replace vague, fatalistic, or reactive self-talk with precise, intentional language. "I can try" becomes "I will complete this small task," and "I might fail" becomes "I will learn what I can from this outcome." Each shift in phrasing strengthens neural pathways associated with agency and competence. Language is the medium through which thought manifests as action. Speaking to oneself clearly and deliberately reinforces the mind's capacity to prioritize productivity over worry. Replace mental clutter with structured, productive reflection. Thoughts are energy. Misdirected, they drain. Directed, they build. Allocate specific periods for reflection, instead of letting intrusive thoughts dominate the day. Use techniques like morning journaling or mental check-ins to examine priorities, acknowledge progress, and consider solutions rather than problems. Structured reflection trains the brain to associate thinking with clarity and usefulness, rather than anxiety or distraction. Over time, mental energy becomes an instrument for creation rather than a battleground of chaos. Train the mind through deliberate focus exercises. Attention is a muscle, not a trait. Practices like focused breathing, single-task engagement, and timed concentration drills strengthen this muscle. Begin with 5 minutes of attention on one task without distraction. Gradually extend duration and complexity. Each session reinforces neural circuits responsible for sustained focus. The disciplined mind does not flit from impulse to impulse. It recognizes and maintains alignment with what matters. Repetition of these micro-exercises reshapes cognitive patterns from fragmentation to deliberate continuity. Guard against thought erosion through selective input. The mind is influenced by the information consumed. News, social media, casual conversations, and entertainment shape cognitive bias, emotional tone, and worldview. Intentionally curate exposure. Consume information that educates, motivates, or broadens perspective, rather than sensationalizing, distracting, or triggering unnecessary stress. Feeding the mind responsibly is not censorship, it is training. Just as a gardener chooses which seeds to plant, select mental inputs that support the vision of a disciplined, capable self. Mental rehearsal is another powerful tool. Before tasks, imagine executing them efficiently, calmly, and effectively. Picture challenges, anticipate obstacles, and visualize appropriate responses. This rehearsal does not replace action, but prepares the brain for success. The nervous system begins to recognize these patterns as familiar, reducing anxiety and increasing confidence when confronted with reality. Productive thinking grows from anticipation, not reaction. Imagining desired behavior primes the mind to follow through in action. Visual cues can prime productive thinking. Surroundings communicate silently to the brain. A cluttered desk encourages scattered attention. A simple, organized workspace supports focused engagement. Place reminders of priorities in visible locations, sticky notes with key goals, motivational phrases that reinforce capability, or a single photograph that embodies purpose. The mind responds to environmental nudges, and deliberate design can subtly reinforce productive mental patterns without requiring constant effort. Over time, cues integrate with thought loops, gradually making constructive cognition habitual. Integrate micro-affirmations throughout the day. Affirmations are not vague cheerleading. They are precise, reality-based reminders of capacity and focus. Simple statements like, "I am solving this problem step by step," or "I notice and redirect unhelpful thoughts," act as checkpoints, bringing wandering cognition back to productive channels. These micro-affirmations strengthen self-regulation, rewiring the mind to recognize when thinking drifts into counterproductive territory. The consistency of small, targeted reinforcement outweighs occasional grand declaration. Ritualize periods of mental clearing. Productive thought is not about constant activity. It is about clarity and readiness. Short pauses, meditation, or focused breathing reset cognitive resources. Regular intervals of mental clearing prevent accumulation of fatigue, anxiety, and scattered focus. This creates space for deliberate thought rather than reactionary drift. The practice becomes a silent contract with oneself. The mind deserves periods of reset, and these moments prepare it for peak function. Observe results and iterate consistently. Thoughts influence behavior, and behavior yields observable outcomes. Review which mental practices produce energy, clarity, and effectiveness. Adjust or replace techniques that falter. Training the mind is iterative. Success emerges from repeated, deliberate cycles of observation, modification, and application. Recognizing subtle improvements, the ability to stay focused for longer, reduced rumination, more effective decision-making, reinforces that intentional thought patterns are not theoretical but practical instruments for life mastery. Anticipate cognitive resistance. Productive thought meets inertia and distraction. The mind will resist clarity through fatigue, emotion, or habit. Recognize resistance as a signal, not a failure. Strategically redirect energy, a brief walk, a change of task, or an environmental adjustment. Stoic wisdom teaches to work with reality rather than against it. Productive thought adapts to circumstance while remaining aligned with purpose. Each encounter with resistance is a chance to practice mental control, strengthening neural circuits of focus and discipline. Finally, cultivate a long-term perspective. Immediate rewards or visible results are not the measure of productive thinking. The true metric is the steady improvement in decision-making. emotional regulation, and capacity for deliberate action. Productive daily thought patterns compound invisibly, like underground roots preparing for a forest. Patience, consistency, and curiosity are the soil in which long-term cognitive growth flourishes. Each day of disciplined mental attention strengthens resilience, clarity, and self-mastery. Anchor productive thinking to routines. Daily patterns support consistency. Integrate reflection, planning, and focused attention into existing routines to reduce reliance on willpower. For instance, reviewing priorities immediately after morning movement or conducting a mid-afternoon check-in on progress structures the day so that productive thought becomes habitual. The brain responds more effectively when cognitive tasks are predictable and scheduled rather than ad hoc. Routine becomes the scaffold upon which intentional thought is mounted. Number 3. Replace negativity with empowering mental scripts. Negativity is a shadow that creeps into the corners of thought, whispering doubt, fear, and limitation. It arrives subtly at first, disguised as caution or realism, but left unchallenged, it grows into patterns that dictate behavior and erode potential. Every individual experiences this inner critic, the mental dialogue that points out flaws, predicts failure, and magnifies setbacks. The power to replace negativity with empowering mental scripts is not about forcing cheerfulness or pretending hardship does not exist. It is about reclaiming authority over the stories we tell ourselves and choosing narratives that build strength, resilience, and forward momentum. Mental scripts shape perception, emotion, and action. Mastering them transforms life. The essence of training thoughts toward productive daily patterns is deliberate observation, structured replacement, intentional focus, and iterative refinement. The mind, when tended with discipline, becomes a reliable instrument, a source of clarity, strength, and resilience. Productive thought is cultivated, not stumbled upon. By consistently applying these practices, a person gradually shifts from reactive drift to intentional mastery, building a mind that supports purposeful action, emotional equilibrium, and a life of disciplined achievement. The first step is recognition. Notice the tone and content of internal dialogue throughout the day. Pay attention to the recurring phrases that limit effort. I can't handle this. I'm not good enough, or nothing ever works out. These statements are scripts that have been rehearsed unconsciously. Writing them down provides clarity and detachment. Seeing them on paper removes the illusion that they are inherent truths and allows the mind to engage critically. Observation is the foundation of transformation. Without knowing what script is playing, replacement is impossible. Next, craft empowering replacements. For every limiting statement, create a counterscript that emphasizes capability, growth, or constructive action. I always fail becomes I learn from setbacks and improve with effort. I'm not ready transforms into I will prepare and take one step forward. The replacement must be believable. An implausible script will be rejected by the subconscious mind. Start with small, realistic affirmations that reflect truth and potential simultaneously. The aim is to guide thought toward constructive patterns that fuel action rather than inertia. Once identified, evaluate each negative script objectively. Determine the factual basis versus emotional amplification. Most negative thoughts exaggerate or distort reality. Distinguish between accurate assessments and fear-driven interpretation. A statement like "I always fail" may stem from a single setback, blown up into a false generalization. Recognizing exaggeration diminishes its power. Rational assessment is not a denial of reality. It is a disciplined practice of separating perception from narrative, a crucial step in reshaping the mind. Repetition is essential. Scripts must be repeated consistently to overwrite ingrained negative patterns. Verbal repetition, journaling, and mental rehearsal solidify new pathways. Short, frequent recitations are more effective than infrequent long sessions. Integration into daily routine ensures that empowering scripts are not an occasional exercise, but a persistent presence. The mind gradually begins to default to these constructive scripts, reducing emotional turbulence and increasing clarity of action. Anchor empowering scripts to triggers. Thoughts are often reactive, responding to specific stimuli, criticism, uncertainty, deadlines, or social comparison. Identify these triggers and preemptively prepare empowering scripts to counter the usual negative reaction. For example, before a challenging meeting, mentally rehearse, "I can communicate clearly and stay calm." The brain begins to associate triggers with positive, structured responses. This practice gradually rewires automatic reactions, replacing habitual self-doubt with deliberate confidence. Incorporate sensory engagement to deepen impact. Thoughts are more influential when paired with vivid imagery, physical sensation, or emotional resonance. While reciting a script like "I am capable and prepared," imagine performing successfully in a relevant scenario. Feel the confidence, notice posture, hear the tone of voice. This multisensory engagement reinforces the script at a neurological level, making it more likely to influence behavior in real situations. Empowering scripts are most effective when the mind experiences them as lived reality rather than abstract statements. Leverage environmental cues to reinforce positive mental patterns. Surround yourself with reminders of capability and progress, notes on accomplishments, motivational passages, or visual symbols of goals. Remove inputs that amplify negativity, such as sensationalized media, toxic interactions, or environments that reinforce doubt. The brain is sensitive to context. By curating surroundings that validate empowering scripts, the mind is subtly guided toward constructive thought patterns. Integrate immediate behavioral reinforcement. Scripts gain potency when paired with action. After affirming a capability-focused script, take a concrete step that embodies it. If the script is "I am proactive and resilient," make a deliberate choice that demonstrates initiative. The mind learns that empowering scripts are not abstract wishes, but operational truths. Behavior and thought reinforce each other in a cycle that strengthens confidence and reduces susceptibility to old, limiting narratives. Challenge limiting assumptions actively. Negative scripts often stem from unquestioned beliefs. "I don't deserve success," "I can't change," or "this will never work." Confront these assumptions by asking critical questions. What evidence supports this belief? What evidence contradicts it? How would someone I respect view this situation? This interrogation weakens the authority of the negative script, creating space for empowering alternatives. Disciplined reflection transforms the mind from a passive recipient of fear to an active shaper of thought. Track progress with subtle metrics. Keep a simple log of recurring negative scripts, moments of successful redirection, and feelings after using empowering scripts. Observing patterns over time validates progress, highlights effective techniques, and identifies areas requiring additional focus. The process of recording itself reinforces awareness and commitment. Seeing tangible evidence of transformation strengthens motivation and provides proof that persistent practice yields measurable cognitive change. Practice compassionate correction. The mind will occasionally slip into old negative scripts. Respond without judgment, acknowledging the deviation and gently reintroducing the empowering script. Harsh self-criticism only validates negative patterns. Acknowledge, "This thought arose, and I will redirect it." Then repeat the positive script. Compassion combined with firmness trains the mind to recognize errors without internal conflict, increasing overall emotional stability and reinforcing self-mastery. Use micro-moments throughout the day to anchor new scripts. Empowering mental patterns are not limited to formal exercises. They can be applied in small, repeated intervals. While waiting for a train, during a break, or before responding to messages, repeat empowering statements silently. These micro-injections gradually saturate the subconscious mind, making positivity an automatic response rather than a deliberate effort. Over time, the brain recognizes constructive scripts as natural and dominant. Create a feedback loop with reflection. At the end of each day, review situations where negative scripts emerged and note how the new empowering patterns influenced outcomes. Evaluate the degree of alignment between thought, action, and result. Adjust scripts for greater relevance and precision. Reflection strengthens awareness, ensuring that mental patterns evolve rather than stagnate. Empowering scripts are dynamic. They require ongoing calibration to remain effective and credible. Embrace adversity as a context for script testing. Challenges amplify habitual thought patterns, making adversity an ideal environment for reinforcing empowerment. Each difficulty is an opportunity to exercise the new mental script, responding with resilience, reframing setbacks, or focusing on actionable steps. Confronting hardship with intentional thought builds mental fortitude and demonstrates that scripts are not theoretical constructs, but practical tools for navigating life. Reinforce scripts through community influence. Share empowering narratives with like-minded individuals or supportive groups. Witnessing others articulate strength and competence enhances personal belief in the same qualities. Observing and interacting with others who embody disciplined thought patterns accelerates internalization. Social reinforcement validates the script, creating a network effect that strengthens the mind's adoption of empowering patterns. Empowering mental scripts become a lens through which reality is interpreted. They do not erase challenges, but allow the mind to respond constructively. Each repeated affirmation, anchored action, and reflective insight rewires the nervous system, replacing the weight of doubt with clarity, strength, and agency. The mind gradually defaults to resilience rather than fear, focus rather than distraction, and initiative rather than hesitation. Through persistent, thoughtful practice, negativity is transformed from an invisible barrier into a stepping stone for deliberate, empowered living. The repeated cultivation of constructive thought solidifies identity, shapes daily behavior, and cultivates a life where perception and action are aligned with purpose, capability, and enduring growth. Commit to long-term practice. Rewriting mental scripts is not an instant transformation, but a steady accumulation of small, deliberate interventions. Each day of awareness, rehearsal, and reinforcement compounds, gradually reshaping thought architecture. Patience, persistence, and disciplined repetition are the cornerstones of lasting cognitive transformation. Over time, the new scripts cease to feel effortful. They become the default, quietly guiding perception, emotion, and action towards sustained growth. Number 4. Strengthen resilience through intentional self-discipline. Resilience is not a trait people are born with. It is a skill cultivated through deliberate action and intentional self-discipline. Life presents obstacles with relentless impartiality, unexpected setbacks, demanding responsibilities, and moments that test endurance. The difference between those who endure and thrive and those who falter lies not in circumstance, but in the habitual choices that shape response. Strengthening resilience requires creating mental and physical habits that prepare the mind to remain steady under pressure, to act decisively when emotions surge, and to recover quickly from adversity. Self-discipline is the scaffolding upon which resilience is built, a deliberate commitment to acting in alignment with values rather than succumbing to impulse. Consistency is essential. Resilience is forged in repeated, disciplined action rather than sporadic heroics. Begin with small commitments that require daily or near-daily practice. These can include maintaining a structured schedule, completing tasks before feeling motivated, or intentionally pushing beyond comfort in controlled ways. The power lies in repetition, where each choice reinforces neural pathways that favor perseverance over avoidance. By creating predictable, reliable structures in life, the mind learns to anticipate effort as a normal, manageable part of existence, reducing panic when unexpected stress emerges. Begin by recognizing that discomfort is the soil for growth. Resilient individuals do not avoid challenge. They approach it with awareness that struggle strengthens capability. Embracing discomfort does not mean seeking pain indiscriminately, but rather seeing every challenge as an opportunity to expand the capacity to endure. Small daily exercises, waking slightly earlier than preferred, performing a physically demanding routine, or tackling a task that induces minor fear, train the mind to tolerate stress while staying intentional. Each act of voluntarily facing manageable discomfort strengthens the psychological muscle that will carry weight in larger crises. Build physical resilience alongside mental resilience. The body is the vessel through which all experiences are processed. Regular exercise, adequate sleep, balanced nutrition, and deliberate exposure to physical stressors, like cold showers or high-intensity intervals, fortify the body and teach the mind to remain composed under strain. The connection between body and mind is undeniable. Strength in one reinforces strength in the other. Physical discipline signals to the nervous system that endurance is normal, calibrating stress responses to maintain equilibrium in unexpected or prolonged difficulty. Self-discipline demands awareness of immediate impulses and the willingness to override them. When fatigue, frustration, or fear arises, the resilient individual acts according to principle rather than reaction. This may involve prioritizing a task despite lack of motivation, maintaining calm during conflict, or choosing a constructive response to criticism. Recognize that the initial urge to avoid difficulty is natural. Mastery is in choosing action aligned with long-term benefit. Each disciplined decision strengthens the neural networks associated with intentionality, creating automatic readiness to face future challenges. Structure challenges to cultivate progressive growth. Avoid overwhelming the system initially. Resilience is layered. Begin with achievable stressors and gradually increase intensity, complexity, or duration. By calibrating challenges, the mind and body learn to adapt incrementally. Small victories provide proof of capability, fueling confidence that supports facing increasingly demanding situations. This layered approach ensures that resilience is sustainable and that setbacks do not create discouragement, reinforcing the belief that effort leads to measurable improvement. Integrate reflection and evaluation as a continuous practice. After challenges or periods of stress, reflect on responses, noting successes and areas for improvement. Identify moments when self-discipline contributed to effective action and where avoidance or impulsivity dominated. Reflection transforms experience into learning and strengthens the conscious ability to make better choices in future scenarios. The resilient mind treats setbacks as data rather than failure, refining strategies rather than succumbing to discouragement. Anchor self-discipline to routines and rituals. Daily habits create stability, reducing cognitive load and preserving energy for critical decisions. Rituals can include morning preparation, deliberate reflection, or strategic planning. These anchor points act as mental and emotional stabilizers during chaotic or stressful periods. Discipline in minor repeated acts transfers to larger, unforeseen circumstances, as the brain recognizes that structured action is reliable and effective. Predictable patterns allow the mind to conserve strength while maintaining control over response, enhancing overall resilience. Practice emotional regulation intentionally. Resilience is not the absence of emotion, but the capacity to respond with clarity under emotional strain. Develop techniques to manage anger, fear, and anxiety, such as breath control, brief meditation, or reframing the context of difficulty. Training emotional responses in calm, controlled environments translates into the ability to act with composure when stakes are high. Intentional emotional discipline strengthens confidence and reduces the likelihood of impulsive reactions that compromise long-term goals or well-being. Build accountability systems that reinforce self-discipline. Share commitments with trusted peers, mentors, or a community that values growth and responsibility. Accountability provides external reinforcement for internal discipline and creates subtle social pressures to follow through on commitments. Observing others adhere to standards of resilience and self-discipline also serves as inspiration and modeling. The combination of personal effort and external validation strengthens the likelihood that intentional action becomes habitual. Strengthen decision-making under pressure by practicing small, high-frequency choices. Daily life provides innumerable opportunities to act decisively in controlled situations. Choose quickly and deliberately in routine matters. Resist procrastination and honor commitments promptly. Each successful, intentional choice trains the nervous system to trust in judgment and reduces hesitation when facing larger, unpredictable challenges. Decision-making becomes a muscle that, when exercised consistently, improves confidence and adaptability in the face of adversity. Prepare for adversity by anticipating potential scenarios. Mental rehearsal of challenging situations, whether conflict, failure, or loss, reduces the shock of real-life stress. Imagine responses, visualize obstacles, and consider constructive outcomes. The mind becomes familiar with navigating difficulty, creating a reservoir of strategies accessible under pressure. Anticipation does not eliminate struggle but equips the individual to respond without panic, guided by intentional, disciplined action. Preparedness cultivates resilience through familiarity and force. Use small, deliberate challenges as tests of character. Confront minor inconveniences or frustrations with composure, transforming ordinary irritations into exercises in self-control. Responding constructively to delays, minor conflicts, or discomfort develops the reflexes of resilience that scale to major life challenges. Each encounter with difficulty is an opportunity to practice choosing response over reaction, demonstrating that self-discipline is not theoretical but enacted consistently through small, repeated acts. Adapt strategies dynamically. Resilience is not rigid endurance. It requires flexibility to respond effectively to changing circumstances. Monitor which practices, routines, and mental approaches are producing results and which require adjustment. Adjustments are not signs of weakness, but of strategic alignment with reality. Intentional flexibility ensures that resilience is sustainable, avoiding brittle rigidity that collapses under pressure. The disciplined mind learns to bend without breaking, using adaptability as a tool of strength. Celebrate controlled victories to reinforce capacity. Recognition of discipline and resilience is not indulgence, but reinforcement. When tasks are completed despite resistance, when emotional composure is maintained, or when deliberate action is chosen over avoidance, acknowledge the accomplishment. These moments provide psychological reinforcement, creating a feedback loop that strengthens future adherence to disciplined behavior. The brain internalizes success as repeatable and attainable, cultivating confidence in enduring hardship. Intentional self-discipline, practiced consistently, serves as the backbone of resilience. It trains the mind and body to withstand adversity, navigate uncertainty, and respond to pressure with clarity and effectiveness. Each disciplined choice, small or significant, compounds into robust mental architecture capable of enduring challenges that would overwhelm an undisciplined mind. Through deliberate cultivation of action, focus, and composure, resilience becomes not an occasional response to crisis, but a habitual condition of the self, a quiet, steady strength that carries every decision, every challenge, and every opportunity with steadfast purpose. Finally, embrace a long-term perspective. Building resilience through self-discipline is a process measured in months and years rather than days. The cumulative effect of repeated, intentional action gradually transforms capacity for endurance, emotional regulation, and strategic response. Each challenge faced with discipline adds layers to mental fortitude. Over time, the ability to maintain composure, act decisively, and recover quickly becomes second nature, turning difficulty into a mechanism for growth rather than a source of despair. Number 5. Reframe challenges as growth-building opportunities. Life is a series of obstacles, but the lens through which those obstacles are viewed determines their effect. A challenge can either be a source of frustration and fear, or a teacher that shapes competence and fortitude. Reframing challenges as growth-building opportunities is not about denying difficulty or minimizing hardship. It is about intentionally shifting perspective to extract learning, resilience, and strength from every experience. The mind that sees opportunity in difficulty develops adaptability, problem-solving skills, and confidence, transforming setbacks into stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. Next, identify the potential lesson embedded in the challenge. Every difficulty contains information about what works, what doesn't, and where improvement is possible. Ask questions. What skill could this situation strengthen? What insight does it reveal about strategy, relationships, or priorities? What internal qualities, patience, persistence, creativity are being tested? By framing challenges as information-rich experiences, the mind shifts from avoidance to curiosity. Curiosity transforms the unknown from a source of fear into a tool for growth, giving the challenge constructive weight instead of destructive energy. The first step in this process is conscious awareness. Recognize that a challenge exists without adding layers of judgment or panic. Whether it is a professional setback, interpersonal conflict, or personal limitation, acknowledge the situation clearly and objectively. Observation, without emotional distortion, allows space to analyze and respond. The goal is not to eliminate discomfort, but to create a mental distance that allows evaluation. By separating immediate emotional reaction from the situation itself, the mind opens to constructive possibilities rather than being consumed by frustration or self-pity. Adopt a problem-solving orientation rather than a reactionary stance. When faced with difficulty, focus on actionable steps instead of ruminating on the unfairness or magnitude of the obstacle. Break the challenge into manageable segments and consider what can be done immediately, tomorrow, and over the long term. Action produces momentum, which alleviates anxiety and reinforces the sense of agency. Each step taken in alignment with goals converts abstract difficulty into concrete learning experiences, reinforcing the belief that every problem carries a potential benefit if approached strategically. Change the narrative internally. Human perception is shaped by the stories we tell ourselves about events. Replace narratives of victimhood or limitation with ones of skill building and opportunity. For example, instead of thinking, "This is impossible," consciously reframe to, "This is a chance to expand my capacity." Storytelling is a powerful cognitive tool. The brain treats internal narratives as reality, and altering the script influences both emotion and behavior. Consistently reframing obstacles as opportunities reprograms neural pathways to default toward growth, rather than despair. Embrace discomfort as evidence of progress. Growth rarely occurs in zones of comfort. Challenges are the catalysts that push boundaries. Physical, emotional, or cognitive discomfort signals that adaptation is occurring. Interpreting this discomfort as beneficial rather than punitive strengthens resilience and encourages perseverance. This approach trains the mind to welcome constructive stress, recognizing it as a natural component of development. Each moment of struggle becomes a deliberate test, and each act of endurance validates the capacity to overcome. Integrate challenges into daily routines intentionally. Purposefully seek tasks that stretch skill sets, confront fears, or push habitual boundaries. Controlled exposure to manageable challenges allows the mind to practice resilience and reframing in low-risk contexts. This preparation equips individuals to handle larger, unanticipated difficulties with confidence. The cumulative effect is the creation of a mental habit where difficulty is met with curiosity, strategy, and calm, rather than avoidance or panic. Repetition builds automatic recognition that challenges are growth opportunities. Surround yourself with models of resilience. Observing how others respond to adversity provides practical strategies and reinforces the possibility of transformation. Mentors, peers, or even historical figures exemplify approaches to overcoming difficulty, offering insights that can be internalized and applied. Exposure to these examples normalizes struggle as part of mastery and provides a template for reframing challenges in one's own life. Learning from observation accelerates the integration of constructive perspectives on obstacles. Cultivate a mindset of reflection after facing difficulty. Analyze what went well, what could be improved, and what the challenge revealed about personal limits and capabilities. Reflection consolidates lessons, turning experiences into long-term growth. Without this step, challenges risk being forgotten or internalized as failure. Structured reflection ensures that each encounter contributes to a compounding reservoir of skill, knowledge, and mental fortitude. Regular reflection becomes a discipline, creating a feedback loop that reinforces intentional learning and adaptation. Practice flexibility and response strategies. Challenges rarely unfold according to expectation. Developing multiple approaches, anticipating potential obstacles, and preparing alternative solutions strengthens adaptability. Flexibility allows the mind to respond creatively, reducing stress and increasing the likelihood of successful outcomes. Each adaptive response reinforces the belief that challenges are solvable and contain opportunities, rather than being insurmountable or threatening. Track growth systematically. Keep a record of challenges encountered, responses applied, and lessons learned. Documentation reinforces progress, provides reference points for future difficulties, and allows evaluation of the effectiveness of different strategies. The act of tracking converts abstract experience into concrete evidence of development. Recognizing improvement over time reinforces confidence and encourages the continued pursuit of reframing challenges, Constructive. Adopt a gratitude-oriented perspective toward challenges. Recognizing the value embedded in difficulty shifts the emotional response from resentment to appreciation. Gratitude does not ignore hardship, but acknowledges the potential for learning, connection, or skill development inherent in it. This perspective enhances emotional resilience and reinforces the link between challenge and constructive growth. The brain begins to associate difficult situations with learning and empowerment, rather than fear and helplessness. Anticipate recurring challenges and prepare scripts in advance. Many obstacles arise in predictable patterns, such as criticism, deadlines, or interpersonal conflict. Developing premeditated responses, reflections, and reframing strategies primes the mind for constructive engagement. Preemptive preparation reduces emotional reactivity and reinforces the perception of control over situations. The brain learns to default to strategic, opportunity-oriented thinking, even under pressure. Use visualization to internalize growth. Imagine encountering future challenges with poise, problem-solving, and composure. Visual rehearsal strengthens the neural pathways associated with adaptive response and reduces anticipatory anxiety. The mind becomes familiar with acting strategically rather than reacting impulsively. Visualization conditions mental and emotional responses to align with growth-oriented patterns, making actual challenges easier to navigate when they arise. Embed accountability practices that reinforce constructive response. Sharing objectives, reflections, or lessons learned with a trusted person or group creates an additional layer of motivation and reflection. External validation and discussion reinforce the mental practice of reframing, helping to maintain consistency. Accountability ensures that the reframing process does not remain abstract, but is integrated into practical, observable behavior. Commit to long-term perspective. Reframing challenges as growth opportunities is a cumulative skill, refined over months and years. Each encounter, reflection, and adaptive action compounds into durable competence, enhancing the capacity to navigate increasingly complex circumstances with poise and effectiveness. The mind learns to anticipate benefit and adversity, creating an internalized framework of optimism, grounded in discipline, insight, and practical experience. Treat failure as data, not judgment. Each unsuccessful attempt contains actionable information about skill gaps, process flaws, and areas for improvement. Viewing failure as instructive rather than punitive transforms perception and reduces fear of engagement. The disciplined mind extracts insight from mistakes, integrates lessons, and applies them to future challenges. This approach strengthens both skill acquisition and emotional resilience, creating a positive feedback loop of growth. Integrate small, daily challenges to reinforce the mindset. Minor, consistent obstacles like taking on unfamiliar tasks, addressing uncomfortable conversations, or testing personal limits train the mind to apply reframing techniques continuously. Over time, these micro-practices cultivate automatic recognition that every difficulty, regardless of scale, contains the potential for learning and advancement. Daily repetition creates mental habits that scale to larger life events. By consistently reframing obstacles as opportunities, the mind develops agility, confidence, and resilience. Life becomes a laboratory in which every challenge contributes to skill development, self-awareness, and strategic thinking. This perspective transforms setbacks into structured lessons, fear into preparation, and uncertainty into exploration. Over time, challenges are no longer external threats, but intrinsic instruments of personal evolution. Each reframed difficulty reinforces a life built on intentional growth, disciplined action, and the unwavering understanding that adversity is the path through which capability, wisdom, and strength are forged. Gratitude is more than a fleeting feeling or a polite acknowledgement. It is a powerful tool that rewires perception, stabilizes emotion, and fundamentally shifts the baseline of how the mind experiences life. When practiced deliberately, gratitude transforms ordinary moments into sources of awareness, insight, and energy. The human mind naturally gravitates toward lack, comparison, and criticism, noticing what is missing rather than what is present. This tendency creates a subtle, persistent weight, an emotional baseline rooted in dissatisfaction. By intentionally practicing gratitude, this baseline lifts, creating a more resilient, focused, and contented mind, capable of facing challenges without being overwhelmed by negativity. Number 6. Practice gratitude to shift emotional baseline. Next comes deliberate articulation. Gratitude is strengthened when explicitly expressed, whether internally, on paper, or aloud. Writing down 3 to 5 specific things each day, details rather than generalities, forces focus and specificity. Instead of writing, "I am grateful for my life," consider, "I am grateful for the way the morning breeze touched my face as I walked outside," or "I am grateful for the patience I experienced during a difficult conversation today." Specific articulation engages the brain more fully, reinforcing recognition and emotional impact. The act of naming tangible experiences creates neural associations between perception, acknowledgement, and positive emotional response. The foundation of effective gratitude practice is mindful attention. It requires slowing down to observe what exists, rather than letting life pass unnoticed. The mind must actively register the presence of small gifts, often overlooked: the warmth of sunlight on skin, a steady breath, a kind gesture, or the simple availability of water to drink. Attention is the first step, because what goes unnoticed cannot be appreciated. Observing these small, concrete realities trains the mind to seek value in the present, rather than perpetually projecting into past regrets or future anxieties. Gratitude also requires intentional contrast. Recognizing how situations could be more difficult illuminates the value of what exists. This is not about exaggerating hardships, but observing reality and acknowledging relative stability or advantage. Comparing the current experience with a plausible absence of resources, opportunity, or support heightens appreciation. The mind begins to register subtle positives automatically, gradually recalibrating emotional response to favor acknowledgement over complaint. This approach cultivates resilience because it trains the mind to find meaning and reinforcement even amidst adversity. Link gratitude to embodied experience. The body and mind are intertwined. Physical sensations amplify emotional states. While practicing gratitude, notice bodily reactions, the release of tension, the softening of posture, or the warmth of a smile forming. Breathing slowly and deeply during reflection enhances the emotional effect, solidifying the shift in baseline mood. Embodied awareness ensures that gratitude is not a purely intellectual exercise, but a full-bodied practice that resonates neurologically, emotionally, and physically. Use gratitude to reframe difficulty. Every challenge contains elements for which the mind can find acknowledgement. This does not diminish the gravity of obstacles, but highlights areas of stability, learning, or growth. Recognizing aspects such as personal resilience, supportive relationships, or lessons gained transforms perspective. The reframing process turns adversity into a source of emotional enrichment rather than a trigger for despair. Gratitude becomes a lens that filters experience through appreciation, allowing the mind to maintain equanimity and adaptive focus. Integrating gratitude into daily routine magnifies its effect. The practice is most potent when it is habitual, repeated at the same time, or associated with a trigger. Morning reflection upon waking. Noting 3 things before starting the day sets a tone that shapes perception and response. Evening reflection on positive outcomes of the day consolidates learning and reduces rumination. Ritualized gratitude anchors emotional stability, turning the mind toward constructive focus rather than reactive pattern. Consistency strengthens neural pathways, allowing the brain to default toward recognition and appreciation over time. Expand gratitude into multi-layered awareness. Beyond personal benefits, consider the network of interdependencies that support life, the labor, processes, and systems that sustain daily existence. Recognizing the complexity behind seemingly simple conveniences fosters humility and deepens appreciation. Observing these layers encourages broader perspective and reinforces the habit of noticing value rather than taking circumstance for granted. Each acknowledgement broadens the field of awareness, creating more opportunities to reinforce positivity and emotional balance. Engage in gratitude actively with others. Expressing appreciation to colleagues, friends, or family strengthens social bonds and reinforces the emotional experience. The act of sharing acknowledgement amplifies its effect, creating reciprocal positivity. Even small gestures, such as verbal thanks, written notes, or mindful recognition of effort, enhance emotional baseline while fostering connection. Socially anchored gratitude enriches both the giver and the recipient, creating a reinforcing loop of shared awareness and mutual reinforcement. Observe the habitual patterns that undermine gratitude. The mind naturally drifts to comparison, desire, and complaint. Identifying these tendencies allows the practitioner to consciously pivot toward acknowledgement. For instance, when noticing envy of another's success, intentionally reflect on personal advantages or progress in related areas. The deliberate redirection of focus strengthens cognitive flexibility, teaching the brain to navigate naturally arising negativity and anchor in constructive perception. The mental baseline gradually shifts from scarcity toward sufficiency, reducing the grip of reactive emotional patterns. Monitor the ripple effects of consistent gratitude. Emotional baseline influences decision-making, interpersonal relationships, and stress tolerance. As appreciation becomes habitual, the mind perceives situations more accurately, reacts with composure, and identifies opportunities rather than obstacles. Gratitude reduces reactivity to minor irritations, increases patience, and fosters openness to constructive feedback. The cumulative effect of repeated practice reshapes personality, creating a natural resilience and calm that emerges before conscious effort is required. Utilize journaling strategically to deepen insight. Recording daily gratitude not only reinforces recognition, but also allows for longitudinal reflection. Reviewing previous entries highlights growth, consistency, and resources that may have been forgotten. This historical perspective strengthens self-awareness and sustains motivation, demonstrating that gratitude has tangible impact on experience. Tracking patterns ensures that gratitude is not intermittent, but an embedded practice influencing perception over time. Combine gratitude with action to solidify its impact. Reflection alone is valuable, but acting in accordance with recognition, such as helping others, preserving resources, or maintaining discipline, strengthens the mind's association between acknowledgement and effect. Gratitude thus becomes active, not passive. Engaging in behaviors consistent with recognition of value reinforces the mind-body emotion loop, deepening the shift in baseline perception and encouraging sustained practice. Action creates tangible proof of acknowledgement, embedding gratitude into lived experience. Anticipate moments of disruption. Life is unpredictable and emotional equilibrium can be challenged by stress, conflict, or disappointment. Prepare by maintaining a portable gratitude practice, silently noting small positives during transit, observing sensory details in nature, or recalling prior successes during stress. These micro-practices reinforce emotional baseline even amidst turmoil, ensuring that habitual recognition persists regardless of external circumstance. The mind becomes resilient, not only in ordinary conditions, but in the presence of challenge. Incorporate imaginative expansion. While reflecting on present positives, consider potential growth and the opportunities they create. Gratitude need not be limited to acknowledgement of current benefit, but can include anticipation of how resources, relationships, or personal qualities may support future progress. Anticipatory gratitude primes the mind to recognize potential and reinforces proactive engagement with life's challenges. This forward-looking practice strengthens confidence and adaptive planning, intertwining appreciation with constructive foresight. Gradually expand gratitude beyond immediate personal sphere. Recognize the contributions of systems, communities, and even natural processes that support existence. Observing the interconnectedness of life fosters humility, reduces self-centeredness, and encourages empathy. This broader scope amplifies emotional richness, providing a more stable and generous baseline from which to engage with the world. Appreciation of complexity enhances perspective and reinforces the mind's capacity for calm, deliberate action. Finally, cultivate persistence. The shift in emotional baseline does not occur through sporadic reflection. It emerges from consistent, repeated practice over weeks, months. Each act of mindful recognition, articulation, and expression strengthens neural pathways associated with positive perception, reducing susceptibility to negativity and reactive emotion. Emotional resilience grows steadily, creating a default orientation toward awareness, appreciation, and stability. Gratitude becomes a mental habit, a constant lens through which life is interpreted, producing a mind that experiences depth, composure, and constructive engagement regardless of circumstance. Number 7. Reduce mental clutter through focused minimalism. Practicing gratitude intentionally transforms thought, emotion, and perception. Each moment of acknowledgement reshapes the internal environment, creating a stable baseline from which challenges are approached with composure, opportunities are recognized with clarity, and interactions are enriched with presence. Over time, habitual gratitude rewires the mind toward equilibrium, optimism, and resilience, making appreciation a central component of mental and emotional architecture. By embracing this practice, life is experienced not as a series of deficits or frustrations, but as a landscape rich with value, meaning, and possibility. The first step is identifying sources of cognitive overload. These may include excessive media consumption, multitasking, unnecessary obligations, or repetitive worry about events beyond control. Each source consumes energy, often without notice, leaving the mind fatigued and reactive. Awareness requires deliberate observation, noting recurring thoughts, distractions, and interruptions that pull attention away from meaningful engagement. By mapping mental inputs, it becomes possible to distinguish between essential focus areas and noise. Understanding where energy is wasted forms the foundation for restructuring attention. The mind is an incredibly powerful instrument, yet it is constantly bombarded by excess, endless notifications, unfiltered information, unfinished tasks, and scattered priorities. This mental clutter slows thinking, increases stress, and clouds decision-making. Focused minimalism is the deliberate practice of simplifying mental inputs, streamlining priorities, and creating space for clarity. It is not about avoiding responsibility or denying complexity. It is about choosing what deserves attention and letting go of what does not. Reducing mental clutter allows the mind to operate with precision, creativity, and calm, transforming overwhelm into purpose and action. Next, prioritize ruthlessly. Focused minimalism requires determining what matters most to goals, values, and responsibilities. This involves listing tasks, relationships, and mental preoccupations, then evaluating their important. Tasks that are neither urgent nor aligned with long-term objectives should be minimized or eliminated. Obligations that drain energy without meaningful return should be reconsidered. By clarifying priorities, the mind is freed from constant diversion, concentrating energy on what produces measurable outcomes. Simplicity creates efficiency and fosters mental clarity, allowing decisions and creativity to flourish. Practice single-tasking consistently. Multitasking is a primary contributor to cognitive clutter, fragmenting attention and reducing quality of thought. Committing to one task at a time, giving it full focus, allows deeper processing, reduces error, and enhances retention. Begin with small exercises, completing a single email without distraction, or engaging fully in a short creative task. Over time, the brain adapts, becoming accustomed to sustained attention. This habit builds mental discipline, reduces the noise of scattered cognition, and creates a sense of accomplishment that reinforces clarity. Implement boundaries on information intake. Constant exposure to news, social media, and notifications fragments attention and reinforces reactive thinking. Intentionally limiting access, scheduling consumption, or curating content ensures that only relevant, constructive inputs occupy mental space. By filtering information deliberately, the mind can focus on tasks that align with goals rather than reacting to every external stimulus. This disciplined approach cultivates a sense of control over attention and reduces the anxiety that arises from overexposure to noise and distraction. Declutter the environment to influence mental clarity. Physical surroundings affect cognitive load profoundly. Disorganized spaces, crowded desks, and visual distractions mirror internal chaos. Simplifying surroundings, removing unnecessary objects, organizing tools, and creating minimalistic workspaces reduces external stimuli that compete for attention. The mind naturally mirrors the environment. Clear, purposeful spaces foster clear, purposeful thought. Physical minimalism is not superficial. It is a practical tool for cognitive efficiency and emotional calm, reinforcing the internal practice of focused attention. Create structured mental routines. Mental clutter often arises from unplanned thought cycles and chaotic decision-making. Implementing consistent routines, morning planning, midday reflection, or evening review, guides attention toward priorities and reduces random mental drift. Routines act as scaffolding, giving the brain predictable anchors that minimize unnecessary cognitive load. When decision-making and reflection are structured, the mind can conserve energy for creative problem-solving and high-impact action, rather than constantly juggling competing stimuli. Practice intentional reflection. Set aside time to examine thoughts, identify lingering distractions, and clarify goals. Journaling, mental mapping, or voice recording can provide clarity and reduce rumination. Reflection converts scattered cognition into organized insight, transforming mental clutter into actionable awareness. Regular reflection ensures that the mind does not accumulate unresolved concerns, enabling the development of purposeful strategies and reinforcing a habit of disciplined mental housekeeping. Embrace the discipline of saying no. Mental clutter often arises from overcommitment to tasks, social obligations, or opportunities that do not align with long-term objectives. Learning to decline without guilt protects energy and attention. Each refusal creates space for focused engagement with what truly matters. Saying no is an active practice of prioritization, strengthening the neural patterns that support intentional decision-making, reinforcing mental minimalism, and preventing accumulation of unnecessary stress. Integrate brief periods of mental clearing throughout the day. Short breaks for walking, deep breathing, or meditative focus allow the brain to reset, reducing cognitive fatigue and preventing clutter accumulation. These intervals provide perspective, enhance problem-solving ability, and create space for creative insight. Mental clearing is not idle time, but a strategic investment in focus, energy, and clarity, reinforcing the minimalistic approach to cognition by ensuring attention remains sharp and intentional. Simplify decision-making processes. Decision fatigue is a significant contributor to mental clutter. Establish standard operating procedures for recurring tasks, limit trivial choices, and delegate where possible. Automating routine decisions reduces cognitive load, leaving energy available for strategic high-value decisions. The mental architecture becomes streamlined, allowing the mind to prioritize what genuinely requires conscious deliberation, rather than becoming overwhelmed by constant low-level choice. Use visualization to organize priorities. Mentally mapping goals, deadlines, and relationships provides a clear framework that reduces cognitive ambiguity. Visualization allows the mind to process connections, dependencies, and consequences efficiently, minimizing reactive thinking and anxiety. By externalizing thought patterns internally, the brain can focus on executing rather than constantly reassessing, creating a sense of control and reducing the clutter that arises from uncertainty. Incorporate selective focus exercises. Deliberately direct attention to one element of thought or task for a sustained period, resisting distraction. These exercises train the brain to resist the habitual pull of competing stimuli, reinforcing mental minimalism. Over time, focused attention becomes habitual, reducing the perceived chaos of multitasking and enabling deep engagement with important work or reflection. Reassess commitments periodically. Mental clutter accumulates as outdated obligations, unfinished projects, or irrelevant pursuits linger. Regular evaluation of responsibilities allows pruning of low-impact elements. Maintaining alignment between daily action and long-term objectives ensures that mental energy is directed toward meaningful work. This dynamic adjustment prevents stagnation, reinforces clarity, and sustains the minimalist mindset. Leverage digital minimalism intentionally. Devices are both tools and sources of constant distraction. Limit notifications, uninstall non-essential apps, and create boundaries for digital engagement. Digital focus mirrors cognitive focus. By controlling virtual input, mental clutter is reduced. The brain can prioritize deep work and reflection, rather than being fragmented by endless digital interruptions, creating sustained mental clarity and efficiency. Track the impact of focused minimalism. Observe productivity, emotional stability, and decision-making quality over time. Recording these outcomes reinforces the value of the practice and encourages continued application. Awareness of improvement motivates persistence and provides tangible evidence that reducing mental clutter is a transformative approach rather than an abstract idea. Integrate accountability partners where helpful. Sharing goals, decluttering strategies, and progress with a trusted person creates reinforcement and external perspective. Accountability ensures consistency, identifies blind spots, and provides motivation. The presence of a supportive observer strengthens adherence to focused minimalism, reinforcing cognitive habits that sustain clarity and calm. Anchor minimalism to core values. Mental clarity is strengthened when attention aligns with meaningful principles rather than arbitrary external pressures. Identify the priorities that resonate deeply and let these guide choices, tasks, and focus. Decisions grounded in values reduce indecision, minimize regret, and streamline attention. Mental minimalism is not emptiness, it is precision of thought directed toward what truly matters. Finally, recognize that mental minimalism is an ongoing practice. The mind constantly generates new input, distractions, and obligations. Regular evaluation, pruning, and reinforcement are necessary to maintain clarity. By practicing focused minimalism consistently, the brain becomes adept at filtering noise, prioritizing energy, and engaging deeply with what matters. The mind transforms into a precise, calm, and resilient instrument capable of sustained attention, effective problem-solving, and strategic action. Focused minimalism is the deliberate removal of cognitive excess to create space for clarity, productivity, and calm. By observing input, prioritizing meaningfully, reducing distractions, and integrating structured routines, the mind is liberated from the weight of unnecessary thought. Over time, mental clutter diminishes, decision-making sharpens, and emotional stability strengthens. The practice cultivates a mind that is intentional, resilient, and deeply capable, able to navigate complexity without being overwhelmed, and capable of sustaining high-level performance, insight, and composure in every sphere of life. Number 8. Feed your mind purpose-driven information. The mind is a garden, and the information it consumes serves as the seeds that determine its growth. Feeding it indiscriminately allows weeds of distraction, fear, and superficiality to flourish, while purpose-driven input cultivates clarity, insight, and competence. Every article read, video watched, or conversation engaged in carries influence over thought patterns, beliefs, and decision-making. Consuming content without intention fills mental space with noise rather than nourishment. Purpose-driven information, in contrast, acts as fuel for deliberate growth, shaping understanding, skill, and perspective, and equipping the mind to act effectively in alignment with values and goals.